introduce myself. Hello, my name is Udo Mogu. I am one of the co-founders of Building African Fashion, and we're happy to have you here today for this session, Permute with um, Kahindo, Kahindo, Mateene. And Building African Fashion is an organization that's really working to help break down the barriers in knowledge sharing, help us to grow together as an industry by ensuring that the knowledge that we have within each and every one of us um, is made available to all so that we can all grow together. We're really focused on helping to drive inclusive growth in Africa's fashion sector. And this is one of the ways that we do that by bringing people on our platform to share their experiences so that we can all learn from each other. We're also heavily focused on collaboration because one of our key goals is to see how we can work collectively to help drive structural change and the growth of Africa's fashion industry. And Permute is one of the series that we have. Um, Most of our events have a thematic focus, if it's fashion tech or fashion law. But our Permute series is really just an open dialogue session where we allow those in the fashion industry across the globe to come and just share with us generally about their career, so that we can really kind of dig deep and learn from them and learn from each other. So welcome again. This is very much an informal session, and the format will be that Kahindo and I will engage in some conversation. I'll present some questions to her. It'll be interview format. And if you have questions as well, you can feel free to put them in the chat as we go along. And then we'll also leave time at the end if you have any other comments that you want to add or anything you want to share with us today. So with that, I believe we will get started even as others um, join us. So let me quickly introduce Kahindo, and then we can dive right into the conversation. So Kahindo Mateene rose to prominence as a contestant on season 12 of Project Runway in 2013. In 2017, she founded Kahindo, a rebrand of Modnik in New York. In 2021, Mateene achieved significant recognition as she became a Tory Burch Fellow. Her dedication and talent were further acknowledged when she successfully completed the workshop at Macy's program in 2023. Mateene holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Fashion Design from the Illinois Institute of Arts, Chicago, and a BA in International Business and Economics from Blackburn College. Her work has been featured in Vogue, The New York Times, Women's Wear Daily, Marie Claire, Essence, Elle, and CNBC. And we don't have this here. She also retails across a number of major brands here in the US. And we'll talk more about that as we continue on with the conversation. So, Kahindo, thank you so much again for being here with us today. And thank you to all who are on as well, and we'll get right into the conversation. To start off with, I'm gonna kind of go a bit way back than kind of what we shared with you. Sorry to kind
Okay.
of throw you off with the first question. If you can tell us a little bit, what kind of led you to want to become a designer? How did you make that decision to become a fashion designer?
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Udo and BAF. I appreciate, sharing my story with you guys. So thank you for inviting me. Um, yeah, my journey of becoming a designer, I think, is not straight. And I think it all started, when I attended boarding school in Kenya for 10 years, the same boarding school. And I had to wear an ugly army green uniform for 9 of those 10 years. And I think like I just hated it so much. We only could wear like our regular clothes on weekends. So I felt like my creativity was stifled.
Mm,
But then I remember in Form 5, we got to, design our own uniforms. So but then it still had to be, appropriate.
yeah,
But I think that little spark kind of really sparked my
yeah,
creativity because I was like, I want to do this and that and that. And then, of course, I had to abide by the guidelines.
yeah.
And then amongst all of that, my father was a diplomat. So I was born in Uganda and then we lived in Kenya, Nigeria, Ethiopia. So I was always surrounded by all this amazing diversity of cultures. So, and it was like, on one end, I had to wear green uniform, but then on the other end, and then we would go back to Congo for the holidays, Christmas holidays. I was always surrounded by color and print and just different cultures. So I
Yeah.
think that was kind of the initial spark
Mhm,
that, yes, I wanted to, if I look back at it, that was the beginning of my journey to become a fashion designer. But, my father, typical African man, I couldn't tell him that I wanted to be a fashion designer.
of
And I
course.
didn't even have those words because
Mhm,
we had tailors, we had seamstresses, but we didn't have
yeah,
fashion designers.
yeah,
So it was like later on in life that I
yeah.
really pursued it. And it came about because, after living in the US, going to college, I went back home and
Mhm,
went to the tailors, like how we grew up doing in Congo, and got all these pieces made and went back to Chicago. And
yeah,
everyone was like, oh my God, I love this. I love that. And that
yeah.
really, I was like, okay, this can actually be something that I can pursue.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I love that. I love that story, and I can actually relate as well because I think for me, had no interest in fashion at all. I'm not a designer, by the way, for those who are kind of listening. I'm more on the business and strategy side of things. But I think it was for me also going back to Nigeria as an adult and just seeing the abundance of tailors and just all the styles that they could possibly create that made me realize the potential that there was for the fashion industry on the continent and made me kind of led me down this path of working within the industry. So I can definitely fully relate to that. Um, so let's talk a little bit about Project Runway because I know that's kind of one of the first times that you kind of came into the limelight as a
Mhm.
designer. Can you talk a little bit about that experience of what that was like?
Yes, it was. It was kind of like a dream come true. I had previously applied twice and got rejected. So the third time was like a charm and I got in.
Yeah,
I was so excited. But it was super intense.
yeah,
I was still living in Chicago and I remember it was shot in New York.
hmm,
But I was here for I think 6 weeks, but no one knew because we were under like a
yeah,
you couldn't talk about it at all. We had
yeah,
signed NDAs.
yeah,
But it was till today, I feel like it was like a dream, that I went through because it was so fast paced. It happened so quickly, and just as quickly, it ended really
yeah,
quickly.
yeah,
But it was amazing to be on such a big stage. That was my first time, like really being, getting
yeah,
that type of exposure. But I think it was also so short-lived because, I got eliminated second and I was
yeah,
completely devastated. I was
yeah.
like, they're not gonna take me seriously. And then I feel like they also kind of pigeonholed me, right? They were like, that's the African woman,
Designer, yeah,
African designer. And I'm like, what does that even mean, right?
yeah,
And they saw me just as one thing. So I really, even though it was such a huge platform, I feel like I didn't really get to tell my story
hmm,
properly and how I
yeah,
wanted it because they kind of cast me in
yeah,
this role and yeah, but it was still incredible. I got to meet Heidi Klum and
yeah.
Nina Garcia and Tim Gunn, so it was an incredible experience.
Awesome, awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
So then moving on from Project Runway, to then continuing your brand.
Yes.
How did you kind of pivot out of Project Runway? How did it help you as you continue to build your brand? Um,
Yeah, I think
and there was an originally, I think I'm saying the name wrong, Modanique.
Modanique.
Modanique, okay, Modanique to Kahindo. How did you then pivot from Project Runway to Modanique and then to Kahindo?
Yeah, so Modanique it's actually an anagram of my name, Kahindo and Mateene, my last name. So
Oh
it,
wow, so I was saying your last name incorrect as well.
Matene.
Sorry.
It happens all the time. It happens all. It's like double E. So
Yeah,
in I think French, it's like A.
yeah,
So that's
okay,
so in
okay,
Congo, it's so yeah, no worries. I was gonna correct you, don't worry. But Modanique was prior, to Project Runway. And I think when I did Project Runway, it really gave me the confidence. Even though I was eliminated second, it gave me the confidence to really pursue this as seriously as I could. And what it did, it motivated me to move from Chicago to New York and be like, I'm gonna show them. Even though they eliminated me, I'm going to prove them wrong, right? I'm going to become a successful designer, and I'm going to do that in the fashion capital of the world. So it motivated me, encouraged me, and motivated me to do just that. And then you know, the name change came about because I really wanted it not just to be an African brand. I wanted it to be really connected to who I am. Yes, I'm African, but first and foremost, I'm Congolese.
yeah,
And I wanted people to know that. And I also wanted the name change was, Kahindo in my tribe means it's a name for a girl born after a line of boys. And
oh
I
wow,
feel, yeah, and I feel like I've always kind of followed my brothers. I have three older brothers, and this was a way to make a name for myself,
yeah,
right? To come out behind the shadow and just
yeah,
really make something out of myself and name it and after myself. And I'm so proud of my Congolese heritage and African upbringing and connect it to who I truly am, my culture, my heritage. So that was the name change. And with the change came other things, right? It was also rebranding for it to be focused on production in Africa, so
yeah,
ethical production, as well as designing our own prints and patterns. So
yeah,
before that, we typically used Vlisco, which is widely known,
yeah,
on the continent, even though it's, based in Belgium or the Netherlands.
definitely.
It's one of the bigger African textile brands out there.
Very nice. So, your brand, you guys design your own prints and fabrics now, textiles.
Yes,
Oh, very
yes, we
nice.
do.
Very nice.
Yeah, so like the one you're wearing, which is actually so we love working with artisans on the continent to really support them, create jobs for them, and pay them fair living wages. So the one you're wearing is Adire from Nigeria. So we worked with traditional artisans in Nigeria to hand dye it. So it has that kind of really hand dyed feel to
Yeah.
it. And then the one I'm wearing is a print that's it's like a tree branch print, but this was digitally printed in
Mhm.
Kenya. So designing our own patterns and prints really even took it to the next level because
Mhm.
it's unique to the brand.
Yeah.
And I love also telling stories about the African continent through the prints.
Yeah. Oh, very nice. Very nice. I know working with artisans is something that you care very much about and is a big part of your brand DNA.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that process? I'm not sure if you're aware, but we've been doing a series at Bath focused on brands who collaborate with artisans.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about kind of how you go about identifying the artisans and kind of the process that you use to kind of work with
Yeah, absolutely. So initially it was kind of just through word of mouth. So, we have worked with artisans and small workshops that are primarily either owned by women or they employ primarily female artisans and tailors and seamstresses. So initially it was just word of mouth, and I've worked with artisans in, like I mentioned, Nigeria, Morocco, Congo, and currently in Kenya. And whenever we love working with different techniques and artisanal techniques and fabrications and things like that. So we would just either, reach out to people we know in those countries and ask them if they know of any artisans doing specific work. For example, in Ethiopia, I lived there as a child, but I recently did Hub of Africa, and I love, the techniques, the weaving techniques that they use. So we're looking to kind of incorporate that into our designs. And then in Kenya, it's literally been word of mouth. I also grew up there, and a friend told me about, a female artisans who worked for this woman in Mombasa. So I've started working with them and they cut and stitch all of our pieces. So, and sometimes even people reach out to us now since they know that that is something that we do and we crave, working
them?
with artisans from different countries. We've worked with an organization based in Kenya as well that works. They hand knit all the pieces, and we're looking to do more work with them. So it's really about, we're aligned with three of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is poverty eradication, gender equality, and fair wages. So we try and instill that in every aspect of our business.
Okay, very nice. I like that. I like that. I think this would be a good time to actually ask you about your brand kind of essence now. What do you think it is that kind of makes the Kahindo brand, the
Yeah,
Kahindo brand?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of, Congo is known for like its fashion and its
Yeah.
color and even the sapeur movement, right? The
Yeah.
dandies exactly of Congo, which is like over the top.
Yeah.
So I like taking that kind of over the topness, the vibrancy, the boldness of it, and infusing it with like a New York edge, based in New York. New York is it's still very there's a like a feel to New York that you can't get anywhere, right? It's just the fast paced, the excitement. So it's kind of merging those two. So it's always bold, it's always colorful. Um, but I think it also has like a sophistication to it, that New York kind of city sophistication. Even though, walking in New York, you see everyone wearing black, but and people are like, how do you combine those two?
Yeah.
Because I design pieces that can go with black. I realize that a lot of people in New York wear black, but you can wear your top with some,
Exactly.
black pants, or you
Which
can
is how
wear
I'm wearing mine right now.
Exactly. This trench coat,
Yeah.
with like a black dress. So I think that's what it is. It's timeless chic, but always vibrant and bold.
Yeah. Oh, very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. I like that. I like that. So you've gone through a number of programs,
Yes.
the workshop at Macy's program, the Terry Birch program. Um, would love for you to kind of share with us a little bit about how important those programs were for you in your development, and maybe kind of what you got out of them.
Yeah, the Tory Birch program is an incredible program. Tory Birch has built such a successful business, and she's really a supporter of female entrepreneurs. And
Hmm.
is one of the people who really puts their, what's the saying, puts their money where their mouth is.
You
Or
know, that's exactly.
yeah. So, and that program really exposed me to a community of like-minded female entrepreneurs, as well as mentorship.
Mhm.
And I think one of the biggest things I've gotten out of it, I think I did it, I don't even remember, years ago. And still today, I'm able to book time with the executive leadership
Mm.
for 30 minutes
Yeah,
whenever I need
yeah,
advice on specific things that I'm going through,
yeah.
right? So currently, I'm trying to figure out how to scale my business so I can book time with the sales and marketing, VP, to kind of tell her my struggles, and she gives me advice. So I think that has just been extremely important.
Mhm.
And, as I scale my business, but also having a network of other female entrepreneurs, because sometimes it feels like you're the only one going through
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Then, we have a platform that we can communicate on. We have a WhatsApp group. So just kind of bouncing ideas off of each other, or even resources,
Yeah.
that if I need something, I can just always reach out to them. So that I think has been incredible, and it's ongoing till today. I kind of, reach out to not only the mentors, but the entrepreneurs. And then on the flip side, the workshop at Macy's is a program that really helps product-based businesses help them get ready to work with the larger department stores. And it came at such a pivotal time, right? Because until then, I was working with smaller boutiques, and Rent the Runway was one of my largest. But right after last year, I was able to, get picked up by Nordstrom's and Bloomingdale's. And it teaches you things that people don't even know about, working with these big brands, right? Big retailers. Things like, for an apparel business, every SKU needs a barcode. But how do you get a barcode, right? Like, you have to register your business and get they're called GTINs
Mhm.
or UPCs. And
Mhm.
every single, you'd think just one style would need a barcode, but it's every single iteration of that style. So extra small to double XL needs a specific GTIN and then a barcode, which you then have to print. So those are the things I learned, right? Because I had to do that on a smaller scale
Mhm.
for a pop-up that the Macy's program did with all
Yeah,
of the um, participants of the program.
yeah,
So things like that, and just even the back end being DEI, no, yeah, EDI
yeah.
capable, right? Which is the electronic data interchange. And that's essentially the systems that talk to one another. So when you get a purchase order from a store, how do you get it? They don't just email it to you, right? It goes through the system, then you
Mhm.
get a notification, and then when you fulfill it, you also have to print the packing list, print the purchase order, and then let them know that you've shipped it. So all of that electronic data is exchanged on different platforms. These SPS Commerce, I use Crystal, but there's so many different platforms. So those are the things that I learned through the workshop at Macy's, how to be ready for when the larger retailers, come knocking, and you wanna, be ready, not just financially, but also like the back end. You have to,
Operations wise,
yeah,
yeah.
make
Yeah.
sure that you can fulfill purchase orders and have all of those pieces of the puzzle together.
Well, that's amazing. It sounds like it's quite a bit to actually learn and to get up to speed with.
It is, it
To
is.
engage these organizations. And I know that for African brands, while we're having more and more now, or Africa-based brands, while we're having more and more coming onto these kind of larger retailers, there's still many others who are looking. to see how they can engage those retailers. And
Mhm.
I know, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the Macy's, the workshop at Macy's is primarily for US based or US registered organizations or US registered brands.
Yes, it is. Mhm.
So for those who are not based in the US, because our audience is across the continent in
Yeah.
Singapore as well, how can they kind of get up to speed with these things that they need to do? Are there any particular programs that you can recommend for them, or any kind of
Yeah,
tools that they can?
yeah, I mean, they can always reach out to me, right? I can share my email address, but because I don't know of any programs, and maybe they should be, a program to help,
Mhm.
brands that are not based in the US,
Yeah.
like with all of these things. However, when you do start negotiating with these larger retailers, they will send you a 100-page manual. And it will be listed on there that you need, and they also recommend, right, platforms or companies that provide these services. So even when I started with Bloomingdale's was my first one, they sent me recommendations, but then, you still have to do your research. And in doing my research, I found one that was more cost effective and which is called Crystal, which is
Yeah.
also founded by a woman. It's a startup,
Yeah.
but because of that, they're very flexible, right, in providing their services. But then there's also a company called Folklore that represents brands outside of the US. I think they started representing just African brands, but now they're representing all underrepresented brands. And, being part of them, it exposes you to, and they help you, kind of maneuver all of the requirements
Yeah.
that the larger retailers require.
Yeah. Very nice. Thank you for that. And as you said, if you're willing to engage people, we'll definitely share your contact with
Yes,
those who registered for this session so that they can reach out to you. So thank you
absolutely.
for offering to do
Of course.
that. And then also on the area of working with retailers, I know many may think that once you're inside these retailers, it's all like dreams, roses, everything is perfect.
Mhm.
But can you talk to us about what the positives are and also what the challenges may be in working with larger retailers as a small business?
Yeah. I think the positive and the challenge go hand in hand because, once you're able to get onto these stores, it's a huge platform. The exposure is huge. But because it's a huge platform, you also, and people also don't know this, but um, getting into a retailer online or in physical store is just one step, one piece of the puzzle. You also need people to find you on there, right? So how do you do that? People don't realize that you have to pay to play, essentially, right? Even with these large retailers. So they're also making their money from selling marketing and advertising, right? So in order to be featured on like, featured brands or shop here or the drop downs on the website, you have to pay for that. They don't just out of the goodness of their heart feature brands randomly, and it costs minimum $10,000.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and to be featured in an email campaign, it costs. So every piece of the puzzle costs. So how do you get exposure? So that's a challenge, right? And that's a challenge that I'm currently facing, right? Because I'm a small brand,
Mhm,
and
mhm,
Bloomingdale's and Nordstrom's has hundreds of brands, right? So the only way to really get seen is when you drop new collections, right? And they feature you under new
mhm,
arrivals
mhm.
automatically. But that only lasts 2 to 3 weeks.
Before
So
the new batch comes in.
yeah. So you still have to, kind of
Yeah.
find ways to, and that's my challenge now. How do I find ways of getting exposure on these large sites that I'm on. So like I mentioned, it's a challenge and it's also like a positive. Yes, you got on there. So you have a bigger um, opportunity
Mhm.
for people to find you, but you have to help them find you in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Great. So this is fantastic. I'm learning quite a bit. And as I mentioned to those of us who are in the audience, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to leave some time in the next few minutes or so that you can make any comments or ask any questions. But definitely feel free to comment on anything in the chat as we're going along. Anything you want us to dive a bit more into, anything that you have additional questions on, please feel free to do that so that we can make sure that we include your thoughts and your concerns and questions as we go along. Okay, great. So I'm going to shift directions a bit now and talk about kind of the direction that the fashion industry is heading into in terms of innovation and technology. Um, so with the rise of like digital fashion, things like NFTs and AI, um, do you think that you might be looking to incorporate some of these things in your collections going forward, in your work going forward? And if so, in what ways?
Yeah, I think you just have to be careful which ones you incorporate because, with I mean, so many companies actually in the past few months have reached out to me about even product imagery,
Mhm.
right? So being able to use like AI models who
Yeah,
look real, sometimes you
yeah.
can't even tell, and to showcase and model the collection. And I'm just like, okay, that's interesting, but I'm still not there yet to use AI models. But I think
Sorry,
the
not, and not to cut you off, to that point of AI models, I think it was announced recently that H&M in its last campaign for its spring collection, apart from I think the two stars that were used, I think it was Tyler, the rest of the models were
AI generated.
AI, yes.
You see? I mean, it's
Yeah, yeah.
insane.
If H&M is doing it, which is very much a mainstream brand, and
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And a lot of people, and I tried it, but it just didn't look right. So I was just like, I'm still gonna pay real models to model the collection. But other innovations, I think that I will, in the future utilize things because I currently use like a textile designer who actually, designs the prints using Adobe or Illustrator, right? So actually, and I was telling my brother this because he's in AI, and he was
Yeah.
like, there are programs out there that are easy, you can easily design an image
Mhm.
from just words. So those are things that I think I might utilize because the process can sometimes be cumbersome going
Yeah.
back and forth. So, being able to tell like a chat GPT, use these colors and these motifs and even give it inspirational images. Like
Yeah.
I took a trip to Cayman Islands, and it's literally going to be the inspiration for my next collection for spring summer 26. And I went to like the botanical gardens. And you'd think I've never been to a botanical garden. I mean, I was just like, oh my God, it's so green and the flowers. Like my eyes were just
Yeah.
open to all of the
Yeah.
colors. And I was just like, okay. And even the textures,
Mhm.
of like the leaves and the tree branches, it was just incredible. So being able to tell an
Yeah.
AI platform, and I took lots of pictures, like use these images and design a print, but with a Congolese or African feel to it
Mhm.
would be incredible. So I'm open to using AI in those ways. Yeah.
Oh, very nice. So for your brand, if we can look ahead to like 5 years,
Yes.
where would you like Kahindo to be?
Yes, I have thought about this. And I think because we started in 2017, so, in 2 years, we're going to be celebrating 10 years in business. And I really want my brand to be the next Farm Rio, right?
Mhm,
Farm Rio is a brand in about Brazilian culture. And I
mhm,
want whenever people think of Congo, even Africa as a whole, to really think of Kahindo. I really want to focus this next year in building my brand on the continent. Um,
mhm,
when I first started, even with Modanique, I used to do a lot of fashion shows, but it never materialized to actually getting retailers and boutiques to pick up my brand. But that is my goal
mhm,
for the next couple of years to really get stockists in Lagos, in Cape Town, in Nairobi, in Kinshasa, and
mhm,
for it to be kind of a Pan-African brand and a global brand, because as we know, Africa is the future. So I want to be part of that. And, more and more, people talk about, there's so much diversity in African fashion.
yeah,
And yes, I'm primarily prints, but I
mhm,
also do a lot of different fabrics.
yeah,
So being able to, just tell my story
mhm,
to my consumer in the African market is something that I really want to do. And in the next 5 years to have a physical, presence in New York,
mhm.
in those countries that I just mentioned would be my goal.
Love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I think you often hear of brands trying to come out of Africa and come into the international market, but I love that you want to go back and also retail
Yes.
on the continent so that your brand is not just available here, but also for those who are in Africa.
Yes.
And also the
Absolutely.
reference to Fam Rio, I definitely love that I see that because when you see Fam Rio, you just think colors, celebration, just like life,
Mhm.
and I can see how your brand can become that. And that's how we should think of African brands or African print brands when we see that.
Exactly.
Just a celebration of life.
Exactly. I love that
Yeah.
celebration of life and rooted in, African heritage.
Yeah.
And that's where the boldness of the color, the
Hmm.
vitality, there's so much. And one of the missions of my brand is also to kind of tell positive stories about the African continent, right? Because
So
when I
needed. Yes.
yeah, when I
Yeah.
moved to the US for college, people used to ask me crazy questions
Mhm.
like, how did I come here? Do we live in trees? And I'm just like, are you guys crazy? We have bustling metropolitan cities. I used to go out to the club.
Yeah.
We have malls. We have, so I mean, it's changed a little bit, but
Changed
there's
a little bit. Yeah.
still
Thanks to social media, it's changed a little
yes, exactly. And people are like, oh my God, they watch Young African and Famous and they're
bit.
like, because that's also an extreme, right? But there is a middle ground where they're
We're not all living in trees
metropolitan.
or super rich and eating diamonds for breakfast.
Exactly. So there is a middle ground, and I want to showcase,
Yeah.
all of that. And that's why even in naming my pieces and in the products, I name
Mhm.
them either after African cities or popular African names or
Yeah.
countries, things
Yeah.
like that to educate the masses.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that. I love that. And actually, if you can talk to us about your new collection, I haven't asked you about that, your spring summer 2025 collection that you just released. Talk to
Yeah.
us about the process, the inspiration.
Yes, so spring summer 2025. I'm gonna, I think, start naming these collections. And if I was to name it, it would be Adinkra or
Mm,
Adinkra symbols because it was inspired by a trip I took, my first trip to Accra
mm,
in December 2023. And I went with my 4 or 5 best friends, and we had an amazing time. It was
wow.
my first time to Ghana, and it was just, there was so much culture and
Mm,
so much, just so much, right? And I really didn't know about. Ghana before I went there. So just being exposed to it, and then we did so many cultural things from
Yeah.
like cooking jollof,
Hmm.
I know Ghana, Nigeria jollof. I'm not even gonna touch that.
About fours, yes.
Exactly. But to even like doing our own batik and that, because I never done that, right? But I'm always, like I mentioned, I've used Adire in the past, and I've used tie-dye that's made in Kenya. So that trip truly inspired me. And then just, the history, like I mentioned, the culture was so inspirational, the beaches. So
Mhm.
everything inspired me. And in true kind of format, I, designed a print that was inspired by the by some of the symbols. And actually one of them, I don't know if you can see, is called this one right here.
Mhm.
It's called Dwenimen, which is the ram's horns, the symbol for strength and humility. So there's so much like symbolism,
Yeah.
meaning to a lot of things about our African heritage. So I love sharing that with the world.
That's an
So
awesome
yeah, we
story. Yeah.
designed a print, and then I also sourced some of my fabrics from my fabric supplier in Dubai, and I found this beautiful fabric it's blue, but it's ombre. It goes from light blue to dark blue, and it looks like the water, the waves. So that's another fabric that I used for the collection. So it's prints, but then it's also, I did a lot of solids, and
Mhm.
we're getting known for using different fabrics and interesting fabrics.
Mhm.
It's not just prints, but like jacquards and things of
Yeah.
that nature. Yeah.
Love it. Thank you. That's an awesome story. I love it.
You know.
Okay, so if you could collaborate with any designer or brand, who would it be and why?
Um, I think the first one that actually I have quite a few, but the first one that comes to mind is Stella McCartney.
Um,
Because I think she truly represents, she designs for a woman. And
mhm.
if you think about it, a lot of these high-end brands, a lot of men design it,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, who knows a woman better than a woman, right? So Stella McCartney, and it's very chic, it's very sophisticated. And I think the part that really resonates with me is the sustainability part, right? She doesn't use leather, she's all about sustainable fabric. And as an ethical fashion brand, that really speaks to me. And it's always interesting shapes and sophisticated shapes, even though she doesn't use color, but that's where the
Yeah.
collaboration would make sense, right? Someone who does use color and prints, with someone who uses interesting shapes and
Mhm.
silhouettes. I
Yeah.
think it would be a perfect collaboration.
Very nice. I like that. I like that. Okay, so I have one last question
Sure.
for you. And again, for those in the audience, if you start preparing if you want to ask anything of Kahindo. She's here, very open book. I don't know when you're gonna have another chance to engage with her like this. So the last question I have for you is for emerging brands and designers who are looking to build a global business, sustainable business. What advice? What would you tell them? What would you say to them? What are the most important things that they should focus on in trying to
Yeah.
get
I think, as cliche as it may seem, that saying that if you love what you do, you'd never work a day in your life. And I truly believe if you want to build a fashion brand, you have to love it. Because, when I started, even after Project Runway, I just thought I was going to blow up. Right. And it has taken me a long time.
Yeah.
And so many times I've wanted to quit. And but I I'm just I'm I'm just I can't quit because one, I feel like if you quit, you'll never be a success, one.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm just addicted to this business,
Hmm.
and I, I have to see it
Hmm.
become successful, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like I haven't even started, right? I have so
Like that
many,
hurt.
exactly, so many dreams. There's so
Yeah.
much that I want to do. So you
Yeah.
have to be obsessed with it because otherwise you're going to quit. You're going to quit after 2 years, after 3 years, after 5 years, if you're not truly obsessed with it. And on top of that, you have to have, it has to have more meaning than
Hmm.
just creating fashion. I mean, fashion industry is one of the biggest polluters you know,
So many
of the
clothes out there.
world,
Yeah.
right? So if you're going to come up with a fashion business, it has to have more meaning. And I think for me, when I went from Modenique, which was just creating fashion, to Kahindo, which was having a mission to create job opportunities for African women and artisans. It's changed everything, right? So that mission, every time I think of, oh my God, this is too hard, I'm gonna quit, I think of all those women
Yeah.
who are making my clothes in Kenya, all those women who have been able to help have a job. And it's more than just me, right?
Exactly.
I have a bigger
I
mission.
was
And
just taking notes about that because it can't just be about the fashion, like you're saying.
exactly. You have to have a bigger mission. And then side by side, you have to know your brand story. And I've, you know, I've been doing this for a long time, and I feel like I'm always iterating and improving it and working on my brand story, right? Because you need to speak to the consumer and they need to buy in into what you're selling. So I would say all of those things, you have to really be obsessed with your business. You have to always keep learning and to improve yourself, your brand, your business. And you have to be patient
Mhm.
because it's a long road.
Yeah.
And without patience, you're absolutely going to give up. And but if you just keep at it, people succeed because they never quit.
Yep.
So you just have to keep going.
Yeah.
And there'll be highs and lows, but yeah, it's a long game.
Thank you so much, Kahindo. Thank you. This was an awesome, awesome time speaking with you. Really loved all of what you said, particularly this last piece of advice, just to be patient. Overnight successes take many years
Exactly. It's not overnight.
for them to
Exactly.
happen. So I would definitely echo that. Just be patient. You have to love it because if you don't love it, then you wouldn't have the stamina to, spend
Exactly.
all those years that it would take for you to finally kind of break through. So
Exactly.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I love sharing, my journey because I'm always learning and I'm like, people need to know this stuff, right? So
Yeah,
like I said, I'm honestly, they can reach out to me, anyone can.
yeah,
info@kahindo.com. I see all those emails and or DM me, but email is like the
yeah.
best way to reach me.
Great. Thank you so much. We need more people like you in the industry. Like I was saying at the start, our heart at Bath is really about just sharing knowledge and making sure that one person's experience can become so much more because once you share that knowledge, others can also gain from it. And you never know who you can really impact just by sharing your story. So we
Exactly.
create these platforms just to allow that, to allow the knowledge sharing, the information and the knowledge exchange, so that we can build each other up together, continue
Yeah.
to build up our industry. So
Yeah, it's extremely important, especially in the industry where a lot of people do like gatekeep,
yes,
and honestly, I always it doesn't make sense to gatekeep because you're scared of someone competing with you, but no one can truly compete with,
exactly,
right?
exactly,
Because you are an individual with a
mhm,
unique set of
exactly,
experiences and
exactly,
history and culture, and no one is like you. So
exactly,
I'm open to sharing, yeah,
exactly.
any resources.
Thank you so much. And then last chance, if anybody has any questions, I don't think I see anything in the comments. If anybody has anything, feel free to share it.
Hi, good evening. My name is Diana. Sorry, I am calling from Kenya. I'm home with my little one.
Oh, no worries.
Oh,
Following this, Maddie, say hi.
oh, such a cute pie.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, Kahindo, for this, and thank you, Udo, as well. I just feel so honored to be in this call. Mercy McKenna is on the call, I see, and she's the one who invited me.
Very nice.
I am a
I'm
former
sharing.
model who became a fashion designer. However, I feel like I got tired along the way, and I decided to I have a fashion boutique in Nairobi, and I used to make my own clothes. Mercy has been helping me to produce some of my clothes because I don't know if she
Yes,
introduced
I'm
herself.
here, Diana.
Amazing. Yeah, so she's my garment manufacturer, and she's just been pushing me to go beyond um like playing small here in Kenya. And I think I really needed to hear you, Kahindo, speak this evening because you're saying be obsessed with your business and be crazy about your business, otherwise you can give up. My question is on cost competitiveness
Yeah.
because I've found myself selling myself short. Like when I come up with an idea on a design, I price it reasonably because I want to be ethical, but I also want to make some money. However, when I'm competing with people importing clothes from Turkey, sorry about the little one, people bringing clothes from Turkey and other places, I have shifted my mindset sometimes because when you go to the CBD here in Nairobi and you look at the traffic of these places where they're selling cheap clothing, you feel like, so nobody's coming to my boutique. No one is checking up my website. No one is ordering my clothes. How do I stay true to the course of having an ethical pricing strategy and being competitive with my costing? And definitely I'll be reaching out to you. I have even memorized your email address. So thank you. Those are my questions. And thank you so much again.
Yeah, no worries. That's a great question. I mean, even, as I'm thinking of, entering the African market, I was actually telling, I'm working with, I'm going to start working with like a retail strategist based in Lagos. And I was like, I can't sell my clothes, because here in the US, they're like 300, I mean, they go up to 500 US. But if I was to sell it, for example, in Nairobi, I'm not going to sell it at that same price, right? Because I have to do market research and see what price would be a competitive price. Yet it's not going to be, it's a luxury product, it's a boutique product. So similar to you, you have to go to those malls and look for brands that are selling your type of product, but are selling it at higher end, right? And maybe sell it a little bit lower than they are because you want to be competitive. But you also cannot look at the brands or the th people selling like in Kariakor or wherever it in the markets because your customer most likely is not shopping there. So you have to really do market research and also come up with your customer profile, right? Who is she? Where does she shop? What is she looking for? And that will kind of help you determine your price because there is a consumer out there who is shopping high end or even will pay $200 for a dress in the Nairobi market. You just have to find where she's shopping and then do your research and competitively price your product accordingly. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi.
I know she's so cute.
She's adorable.
Thank you so much, Kahinda. That was great feedback. And thank you, Mercy, for inviting Diana. This is what we love, sharing knowledge, sharing resources so that we can all grow together.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
so I think that should be it. Unless there's one more question. Not, we'll wrap it up for today. And again, just thank you, Kahindo, for taking the time As we say to everybody that joins us on our conversations, you're now part of the Bath family. We'll be calling on you for more feedback, more advice as we go along. So thank you again for honoring this invitation, and
Yeah.
look forward to seeing more from your brand. And in 5 years, hopefully we can play this back and
Yeah.
look at you sharing where you wanted to be and hopefully having achieved those goals. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Like I said, this journey, I've just learned so much, and sharing it with anyone, just gives me so much joy because I wish I had someone I could ask, these questions to. So I'm literally, and you said it, I'm an open book. I share my resources. If you're nice, I'll even share emails of buyers. I'm joking. But
Love
please
it.
reach
Yes.
out. And it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you. Thank you. And for everybody online, thank you again. We'll make the recording available to you. We'll send you an email so that you can view the recording again. And please follow us on our social media platforms. We are on Instagram at Building African Fashion. Kahindo, do you want to put in your details as well, like your Instagram?
Yes, absolutely. So my Instagram handle is Kahindo_NYC. And website is kahindo.com. That's KAHINDO.com and _NYC for Instagram. We're on TikTok, LinkedIn, all of the platforms, Facebook. So thanks again, Beth, for having me. I appreciate it. And have a good day,
Yes,
evening,
evening. Yes, different
afternoon.
parts of the world. Thank you guys again. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day and week. Bye bye.
Bye.
Oh.
Thank,
Oh,
thank you. Bye.
bye.
Bye.